everyone, and welcome back to the Genetic Genius Vibe. Today, I'm going to be talking all about the power of the gut microbiome. One of the most amazing features of our body, I think. It's really fascinating, and we're learning so much more about what our gut bacteria does for our body. And this is a great way to really empower your system, to really learn about all the different aspects that the microbiome is helping your body with, and how to recognize when different things are out of balance as a sign that your microbiome might be out of balance, as well as tips as how to bring that balance back into play. First of all, what is the microbiome? It's like this fancy word that you might have heard thrown around a lot. So what the gut microbiome basically is bacteria. And this is a conglomeration of good and bad bacteria that lives in our gastrointestinal system. And these microbiomes, or these microbes, are essential not only for proper gut function, but for the health of the entire body. For instance, it helps with the immune system, with the endocrine system, with the glands of the body, the brain, with mood. So many different pieces that people don't think that the gut is really our second brain. It communicates with our brain in the gut brain connection, but it also helps our body with so many different aspects. So an important piece I want to talk about with the gut microbiome is dysbiosis. And this might also be a term that you've heard before. And dysbiosis basically means, remember I talked about how you have the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. And when you have dysbiosis, what happens is if you have a change in that balance of the good and the bad bacteria, and then that becomes imbalance, which then leads to a ton of digestive symptoms. Some are, which could be like bloating, diarrhea, constipation, and cramps. These are some things that when you can notice when the system starts to become imbalanced. And there's a lot of things that then can contribute to that dysbiosis, which I'm going to be talking about today. But some of those are infection, trauma, a chronic illness, aging, antibiotics, and many medications, alcohol, poor diet, stress. There's so many factors that can disrupt our microbiome. DNA is also a particular factor as well. What is the DNA of your gut? How healthy is the bacteria of your gut? How is it communicating with the brain? So dysbiosis is a huge part of our gut microbiome. So that's great. So how do we know if our microbiome is then out of balance? So here are some common things I see in my practice. When someone comes in to see me as a patient, these things come up. I'm like, okay, I think your microbiome is out of balance. Let's ask some more questions and do some specific testing. So GI problems, of course, hands down. Like I mentioned before, diarrhea, bloating, constipation, cramping, GERD, all of those things can be into that GI problem category. Now, for women especially, yeast infections. So when I see, because as I've talked about in some of my other podcasts, our body is like a tube, right? Things go in through the mouth and out through other systems. And the yeast in the body forms a lot in the vaginal area with women. And there's a lot of, we have our like own vaginal microbiome. And so when that microbiome of the gut is out of balance, it affects the microbiome of the vaginal area, causing yeast infections. And also, if you have a lot of yeast in the system, like candida, that can really throw off the system and cause a lot of yeast infections as well. And weight gain, this is another huge category. So with weight gain, I'll see this a lot because you can think about if that bacteria is not balanced in the gut, you're not digesting properly, you are not able to break down the aspects of your gut properly and communicate with the rest of the system about what you need. That's that bloating piece, that constipation piece, and you'll feel it a lot around the middle. Now, another piece that some people really don't recognize and associate is inflammation and joint pain. Now, when I have had a podcast a few weeks ago, and you can go back and listen to it, all about leaky gut. Now, leaky gut is a huge part of the microbiome. And when we see that joint pain and inflammation, not only do we want to think about the gut microbiome, is the gut balanced? How is it functioning? But also, are things leaking through the system, causing joint pain, causing some inflammation that are then going systemic in the system? right? Now, another interesting piece is allergic reactions. And this is allergic reactions to everything. So it's a type of person, or maybe this is you yourself, right? You're like, no matter what happens, I feel like I'm allergic to everything I eat, everything I go outside, everything I smell. That is a dysbiosis or a imbalance in your gut microbiome. Now, and there sometimes you'll hear about food allergy testing. Now, this is not the gold standard because those particular testing, those particular tests can give us some false data. And really the key to really figuring out what aspects of your immune system, your gut microbiome, and if you're having food sensitivities or food intolerances, is to do a elimination diet. This is really going to show us what particular foods are out of alignment, what particular foods are imbalanced in the system and causing a reaction. So another piece is sinus problems. And when I think about the gut microbiome, I'm thinking about all those mucosal membranes, right? Are they inflamed because the imbalance in the gut microbiome, remember that tube, it's going through the whole body. So all aspects are going to be inflamed. Recurring illnesses. This is a huge one because you have the immune system in the gut. I'm going to talk about more about this. This is the GALT. And the immune system in the gut, when we have an imbalance in the microbiome, then we're going to have a decrease in the immune system function, which causes chronic recurring illnesses. Sugar cravings. This is huge. Now, a lot of people don't associate our gut microbiome with sugar, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm always craving sugar. I just want something sweet. And that can be a balance of yeast imbalance. It can be about imbalance of the microbiome. So that's an important piece to look at as well. And the last bit that I'm going to be talking about today is autoimmunity. And this is a huge piece. And I see this a lot, especially when we're talking about celiac disease and thyroid diseases. We want to see how is the gut imbalance. And really it comes down to everything begins in the gut. We always want to look at the gut when there's an imbalance in the system. And you can see just from those many of the things I just mentioned, there's a lot of pieces about the gut that can be affected. So let's talk about imbalance in general. So what does imbalance mean? So an imbalance, basically, you can put part of the system that is not functioning in homeostasis, in this balance, right? And there's lots of things that throw off that system. And when the body is in a place of dysbiosis, when that gut bacteria becomes imbalanced, what are those real deep imbalances going to be? And that's what I'm going to be talking about more in detail today. So a real important piece about the gut microbiome is stress and the gut connection. Stress does so much havoc in the gut, and a lot of people will feel it in the gut. You'll hear yourself say, or someone, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out today, I can really feel it in my gut, or I'm so worried, and you have your stomach upset or butterflies in the stomach. And stress and gut connection is a huge piece, and that has to do also with the brain and gut connection. And when we're stressed out, there's many things that chronic stress does to the gut. It breaks down your gut lining. So the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, all these have a beautiful lining, especially the mucosal lining of the small intestine and the large intestine. And when we're stressed out, it causes that lining to break down, which causes then more inflammation, less absorption or malabsorption in the gut, particularly causing inflammation, leaky gut, causing cramping and soreness, can cause colitis. So lots of issues can happen there. And when we're in that state of dysbiosis, the piece of leaky gut comes into play, right? So the junctions of the large intestine, they're called gap junctions. These junctions will separate, causing things to leak where they don't belong. And that causes toxins and food and bacteria to wreak havoc in the bloodstream. And they don't belong there, and they can be extremely dangerous. And also, the other piece that I mentioned before about food sensitivities, stress has a lot to do with food sensitivities. When we are in a state of stress, it's most common to make poor food choices, right? Because we're not thinking correctly. We're trying to feed an emotion, right? That's that stress component. And that will cause more inflammation in the gut, more leakiness of the gut, causing a lot of inflammation and food sensitivities. So let's talk about mood. Now, mood is an aspect I know a lot of people don't think about when it comes to the gut microbiome. And the gut and the brain are so connected. I mentioned earlier, the gut is the second brain, and your microbiome has a huge influence over your mental health and how you respond to stress. And we're not really like sure exactly how the specific mechanisms are working yet. That's still like the piece like, okay, well, how is that working exactly? We know it's a lot to do with hormones, right? We know that the gut microbiome affects mood and cognitive function. When you're ever like Thanksgiving is a great example. You have this huge, massive meal, you have all these hormones, tryptophan release, and you just feel so stuffed, right? You're like, and you can't even think. You just want to lie down. It's a good example of how the food that you eat is affecting the communication back to your brain and affecting those hormones. For instance, like certain gut bacteria assist with the production of feel good neurotransmitters like serotonin, right? So you like eat something, for instance, and it could be a false or a true sense of feeling good, right? Oh, I'm going to eat more of that, like a potato chip. Oh, that makes me feel so good. I just want to eat another one. It's a false sense of that feel good, that serotonin and dopamine can be released. So it's good to know your body, know and listen to your body about how your body responds to food. So other bacteria can also affect brain health by it basically controls a feedback loop in this gut brain connection. So it's communicating back to the brain all the time about what's going on in the body, what does it need, what neurotransmitters need to be released, what foods are nourishing the body, what is the response. So the brain can then help the body with the whole digestive process. So that is a huge piece: stress, microbiome, and the gut brain connection. Now, another piece I mentioned earlier was weight. So, several factors, of course, can lead to weight gain. But one that I see the most overlooked in my practice is really that gut microbiome. And there was a study that was done with a set of twins that found that in overweight individuals, they had different gut bacteria set than their lean twin. So being overweight was associated with having a lower gut bacteria diversity. It's really interesting that two people can have the same set of genetics, but they can have a different microbiome. And a lot of that microbiome comes through the birth canal from our mother. Now, of course, that changes over time based on lots of different factors, but that's when we get our real first good wash, so to speak, of bacteria into the system, which is why when a lot of children are going through this cesarean, they're not getting that same gut bacteria. And we can see a lot of issues with children in development when it comes to food sensitivities and different things like that. Their gut microbiome needs to be more replenished. Okay, let's talk about hormones. Of course, my favorite thing to talk about, or one of my favorites, of course, the microbiome is great too. But that's what I'm talking about, this connection. And so when we're talking about hormones, I love this piece because a lot of people, again, they don't really make that connection. Oh, my gut affects my hormones. It sure does. It plays a huge piece in the function of our endocrine system. Our gut bacteria basically signals our glands, these hormone releasing glands in the body, to release the required number of hormones into our bloodstream. So that communication is key. So if we have an imbalance at dysbiosis in the microbiome, those bacteria are not going to communicate properly with the hormonal system, which then causes hormonal imbalance. So that's another thing you want to look for and do possible testing with a GI map or a gut zoomer to really dive deep into seeing what's going on with the gut bacteria if you're having a hormonal balance. So I usually do those tests side by side to really see what's going on. And the gut bacteria influence many of our major reproductive hormones, such as estrogen, as well as cortisol and melatonin. So those are all really greatly affected by the gut microbiome. So another piece is skin issues. Now, our skin is our biggest organ in the body. And so anything that's happening in the gut is a reflection of what is going on the skin, or the skin, I should say, is a reflection of what's going on inside our body in the gut. And when I see problems such as eczema, psoriasis, acne, other inflammatory skin issues, we always want to look at the microbiome, the diversity of the bacteria in the gut, especially in adults, but also in children. Like I mentioned before, if you have had a child, if you have a child that was a cesarean birth, you really want to look at that microbiome and maybe repopulate the microbiome with some great probiotics and prebiotics. So, as we tend to see the issues of the skin, particularly, we're really coming far advanced with new science, really showing how much the microbiome is connected to our skin. And it's through, we could say, we might have heard of the HPA axis. That's a hypothalamic pituitary axis. And now we're finding and discovering we have a gut skin axis. Of course, that skin, the reflection of our skin, it has to be connected to the gut through the microbiome. And it has 100% a reflection of that healthy gut. And I see a lot with patients, especially with psoriasis, when we really go in, we work on healing that gut. It's amazing the effects that we can see happen on the skin. Now, another piece is food cravings. Now, you might be asking yourself, why? What does food cravings have to do with my gut microbiome? The gut microbiome influences our food choices. It communicates with our body about its needs. For example, yeast, like I mentioned before, with candida and vaginal yeast infections, that yeast thrives on sugar. And so when we take other specific bacteria, or there's other specific bacteria in the system, like bifidobacteria, they want to have dietary fiber. And bacteroidetes prefer fatty foods. So if the ratio of good to bad bacteria in your gut is not optimal, we'll see this whole shift happen within our food cravings. So, for instance, when I was talking about the sugar cravings, when we see that imbalance, we'll see extreme sugar cravings that really perpetuate the unhealthy gut cycle, leading to more problems, typically bloating, diarrhea, constipation, etc. And I really see this as well when a lot of patients will give up sugar or alcohol, which is basically a sugar alcohol, and they crave so much sugar because their gut microbiome has been feeding on that alcohol. And then they remove that alcohol from the system, and the bacteria or the gut goes, oh my gosh, what's happening? I don't have the food. So then when you're coming off of alcohol, if you've been drinking a lot, or you're changing your system, removing alcohol, it's great to feed the system with healthy probiotics that will repopulate the system and give the bacteria the food that it needs to survive. Now, another piece is inflammation, and the gut microbiome exists in a symbiotic relationship with the human body. And changes in our diet, which happen all the time, right? Changes on a daily basis. Now, some people eat the same thing every meal with a little bit of rotation. Now, that can be good if you're specifically doing something to heal the gut, but you want to have that rotation. Even if there was a study that was done, and I believe that it said that the standard American and the standard American diet eats the same 30 foods all the time. They don't have that rotation. And we want to have that food rotation to really repopulate the gut bacteria, feed our gut bacteria, and have this really great symbiotic relationship with the gut, the food, the vegetables, the fiber, to really help our gut have reduce inflammation. So changes in that diet, when let's say if you're eating a lot, maybe you were on a specific nutritional plan, and then you kind of quote unquote fall off the wagon. You're like, okay, I really hadn't been eating sugar, dairy, wheat, alcohol, all these things that are inflammatory. You bring them back in, and you're like, oh my gosh, my gut is really messed up. And you're experiencing some of the symptoms that I mentioned earlier. That's because those changes in the diet then cause a change in the microbiome, and that causes inflammation, and it disrupts the intestinal barrier of the gut, which causes it to not function normally, which then causes that systemic inflammation, leading again to leaky gut, like I mentioned earlier, joint pain and inflammation throughout the body. Now, a huge factor of the microbiome is the immune system. And a healthy gut is hands down 100% connected to the immune system. And beneficial bacteria in the gut influence the health of the microbiome. They influence the homeostasis of our immune system. And like I said, this really starts in infancy, right through the birth canal. And any interference in that, which can be a C-section or any other aspect that's going on, an early childhood illness, for instance, this can result in an altered immunity system. So we're going to really repopulate that microbiome. And research has shown a connection between poor gut health and many health conditions, including autoimmune disorders. So having that healthy microbiome, even if you don't have that connection, you're like, oh, wait, I don't really understand, but now I'm getting it, right? How important the gut microbiome is, and feeding the gut that good bacteria can really help boost the immune system, especially in autoimmune diseases. And the last thing I want to talk about today is allergies before I move on to talk about some of my top tips for really helping with the gut microbiome. So allergies, changes in the gut microbiome, and people will have seasonal allergies, right? Different times of the year, whether that's spring or fall. And you always want to look at the gut. How is the gut behaving? How is the gut responding? And if you're a person that has a history of having allergies every season, what I really recommend is looking at that microbiome and repopulating before the allergy season to get your body primed. And there's many different aspects of allergies, right? So we can have seasonal, environmental allergies, chemical, food related allergies. There's so many things that can really benefit from a healthy microbiome. And one of the functions of the gut microbiome is to train the immune system to respond properly. So when we're having a lot of allergies, it's like a misfiring, a miscommunication of the gut microbiome. It really feels like you're like allergic to everything, right? You're like, oh my gosh, everything seems to be a response, or I'm having a response to everything. This is a huge sign, red flag, so to speak, that your gut is most likely the root cause. And that's what I always look at when patients coming in and there is, oh, I have a response to everything. I can't eat anything. That's that gut microbiome really being out of balance. So dietary changes and changes in your environment can result in changes in your gut microbiome composition. For instance, when I moved to North Carolina from Seattle, we had so many plants that were different in our area that I'd never been exposed to. We live in a rainforest here. And I had the first season that we lived here in the spring, I had crazy allergies. I would just like, my eyes are red and runny. So I really boosted my microbiome. And also I exposed myself to a lot of the plants so I could have a natural immune response. And I boosted my body with a lot of specific things to help my microbiome as well. And now, when every season in the spring, my body has adjusted. So your environment can really affect the way your immune system functions. Another piece of the allergy component is the adrenal system. Whenever I have a patient who has a dysbiosis in the gut microbiome, has a lot of seasonal allergies, and is experiencing a lot of fatigue, I'm always want to look at those three together. How are you absorbing food? How is it being digested? What is your cortisol? So do a cortisol panel, really seeing how the body is responding to stress. Are you under a lot of stress? How is your mood? So we want to look at the adrenal component in relationship to the allergic response, because you could think about if you're having a lot of allergic response, it's like you're in the flight or flight mode. You're going to have this cortisol spike during those moments. So you want to check that with a cortisol test. You can do an easy salivary test with that. Okay, let's talk about some gut health tips. These are just going to be some really easy ones that you can start to reintegrate into your life to really improve the microbiome. First of all, remember I talked about the 30 foods that most standard Americans eat. You want to increase your range of foods, have a really wide range of foods, and that includes plant-based foods and grains and seeds and legumes. Now, of course, as you're avoiding those for specific health reasons, like paleo, for instance, don't introduce those back in until you work with a health practitioner or like myself. But you want to really have a diversity. So you're looking at all the foods, the rainbow of foods, really increasing your vegetable and fruit intake. And you can also do that through superfoods and herbal medicine as well. And this will increase and diversify your gut microbiome and improve your overall gut health for sure. Number two is really eating fermented foods. I love fermented foods. You can make your own or you can buy some. Look for something really local in your area. We have some great ones here in my area. And kefir is another good one. These are really great for increasing your healthy gut microbiome. They're going to really help to repopulate the number of good bacteria and decrease the pathogenic species of bacteria in the gut. And there are some people who have a different response to fermented foods, and that can be a lot of SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. If you have SIBO, sometimes you will have a disagreement is a great way to put it with the fermented foods. So you want to check with your health practitioner if if you do have SIBO or SIBO and you have a strange response or abnormal response when eating fermented foods, might want to leave those out and do repopulating with other bacteria instead. And removing chlorine from your drinking water is huge. I am a huge component of drinking healthy, alive water, really having an excellent filter, making sure that you're giving your body the water that it needs, not drinking out of plastic, not using a filter in your refrigerator, but getting a really great filter under the sink, having healthy water in your system. And this is going to provide your cells, provide the actual DNA in the cells, the life force that it needs to be healthy. So, water and also detox and elimination. Without that healthy water, our body is not going to absorb what it needs to have a healthy bowel movement. So, really important. Number four is reducing your sugar intake. So remember how I talked about that bacteria like to feed on sugar? We want to reduce that so that we can reduce the bad bacteria population, right? Or the overpopulation of bad bacteria. Sugar stimulates the growth of pathogenic bacteria in the gut. And this is one of the reasons why doing a gut panel is so important, because we can actually see what specific parts of the body, what specific parts of the bacteria are running the show, right? Which bacteria you have more of, which you have less of, good bacteria, bad bacteria. And this can also aid in what type of specific herbal remedies to bring in to help bring the body back into balance and kill off the bad bacteria. Now, when you're killing off that bad bacteria, you can have, and they call it off-gassing, and sometimes that you can make you feel sick as that bad bacteria is being killed. So another great reason to be working with a natural practitioner like myself to really help you in a detox to get rid of that bad bacteria. And detox is such an overused word, right? And so I'm talking about a detox in a way that opens up the system to allow the bacteria that you don't need anymore, that bad bacteria, that pathogenic bacteria, to flow through and out the system, through the tube that we are. Okay, and then the fifth one is only take antibiotics when absolutely necessary. Now, if you have a history of taking a lot of antibiotics, whether that's a childhood condition or a teenager or adult, you really want to look at repopulating the gut bacteria, because most of it was probably killed off during that stage. That might be why you might be having some of the symptoms I mentioned earlier. And antibiotics don't distinguish. They don't have at this period of time anyway, they don't have a specific marker that says only kill these specific bacteria in the gut. They just kill everything. And there's been some studies done. Now, I don't know the exact validity of these studies. I need to research them a little bit more, but there are some studies that have been shown that when you take an antibiotic, it can kill, some studies say 6 months. So killing that good and bad bacteria for up to 6 months, like taking 6 months to repopulate. And I've also seen some that say 6 years. So that's, of course, a big range of between those two. But what I get from that, right, the information we can absorb from that is that for sure we need to repopulate the gut. And usually, and I highly recommend using a higher strength, a billion of bacteria. And I'll usually put my patients on a very high billion after they've been on an antibiotic to really repopulate the gut, and at least for 30 days, even more, to really see. And sometimes I'll do a gut panel after that to make sure that there's a lot of good bacteria in the gut. So I hope that you learned a lot about the microbiome today, and I look forward to talking to you next time on the Genetic Genius 5.